All right, guys, let's talk about cycle 1, week 9. Here we are. As a reminder, everything that I share today will be linked in my blog post, which is linked in the comments of this video. And also as a reminder, I have 5 to 7-year-olds, so younger age group with my crew. Okay, so for new grammar, for timeline, I hid the cards around the room. And so after we came in from morning meeting, I played the timeline song. They ran around, they found a timeline card. Then we lined them up on the whiteboard. And they really love when I give each individual kid a card, either our timeline cards or some of the visual cards I use for history, and then they get to come put them up in order and then scramble them up and do it again. They've just really enjoyed that. So we did that a couple times with the timeline cards. For math, we continued with math-ercise, and while we listened to the 15s, we did wall sits, we did lunges, and we did high knees. So that was what we did for our 3 exercises today. For history, we did the motions that, again, I get them from Driven by Grace here on YouTube. So 6th century of Lao Tzu and Taoism, harmony, like this, and then Confucius, compassion, obedience, and then Lao Tzu, Confucius in China. So her video has it like slowed down, so check that out. But we taught them the hand motions, and then I had the visual cards that I use a lot of the weeks. And this week, since there weren't very many, I wouldn't have had enough for each of my kids to have one. So I taped them around the room instead, like kind of in a circle around the room. And we listened to the song. And as we got to that portion of the song, they ran to each card. They love to just run around the room. So that was fun. We did that. For geography, I used my little animals. So the set of animals that I bought are ocean creatures. So whenever we have a geography that is kind of heavy on, anything water related, so rivers, oceans, that kind of stuff, I like to pull these little guys out. We take them for a swim. So I give each of the kids one of these, and we started with tracing them and identifying them on the map, and then we took each of their little sea creatures around to the different areas to practice finding them on the map. So they love the little sea creatures, which also worked nicely with this week's hands-on science because we were looking at a perch fish this week. Okay. For science, we just did really simple motions, again, Driven by Grace. I'll have her video linked, but we did leaf, stems, hands straight down, and then for roots, hands still straight down, but fingers wiggling like this. You can't see my hands, but just leaves, stems, roots. Super easy. And then after I taught them the motions, we said it multiple times in different voices. I like to do the different voices. They think that's fun. But this week specifically, I picked some of our fine arts review from last week. So this week we said it in crescendo, we said it in decrescendo, we said it in pianissimo, and we said it in mezzo forte. So it was a good review of what we learned last week. So that was fun. For English, still working on our prepositions, hand motions, and song. So we did outside, over, past, regarding, since. And we do the motions multiple times slowly, and then we try to do them fast like the song. And then for Latin, I do the same thing each week when we introduce a new declension, noun ending, and that is I use the Latin lamb puppet, and they use their little Latin lions. I will say it's still not really very easy for them to get the lions on their hands, so we still have to work with them, but once the moms, we get them on there, then they get to do their little lions. So that was new grammar for today. For hands-on science, we dissected or investigated, looked at a perch fish. So it's supposed to be a crayfish, crawdad thing, but apparently there's a shortage. And so the CC directors were given a couple of different alternatives, and our director chose the perch fish. So that was definitely my least favorite science. It was disgusting. I'm really squeamish. So I was like, I want to have nothing to do with this. So not super fun for me. The kids enjoyed it, but I was just like, blah. Thankfully we had some moms and grandmoms in there that were a little more like into that kind of thing. And so they helped the kids while I just sort of supervised. So anyway, that was that this week. Ugh. glad to have that over with. Anyway, and then for fine arts, I'll show you a couple of the things that I did. So I started off, I started off like it says in the book to do, which is like we sang Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, and we listened for any notes that were longer. Like that's all stuff that, you know, is in the CC lesson plan to do. So I'm just going to share some of the things that I added. So one of the things was drawing a staff. And so we have laminated staffs, like a page with a bunch of them on there. I think it's the page from the book that's been laminated to use, but I chose not to do that because the person that I watch on YouTube each week to help prep my lesson, she does a great job of explaining like how easy it is to teach the kids to draw it. And then they kind of have that empowerment to go home and draw their own musical staff. And so I did that instead. And so I just taught them how to draw a rectangle, split it in half, and split those in half again. And so all my kids were easily able to draw their own staff. Then we introduced the different types of notes. And so I made a bunch of different visuals this week for like, I made them myself, and I will put them on my blog so that you guys can access them, but I haven't yet. I literally made them last night. But I made these that I put magnets on. And so I stuck these up on the board on my staff that I'd drawn to show them. But then I also took a marker and I drew one myself. So I put one example of like the printed one, and then I would draw a whole note, and then I would put up a half note and I would draw a half note. You do not have to have these visuals. Absolutely just draw the staff yourself and draw the notes yourself. That was like just kind of an extra that I was playing around with things and made it, printed it. I was like, let's a little bit more than I needed, but I did that anyway. So, and then I also showed them the treble clef, and see, it's got magnets. I could stick it up there. I put one up there, and then I showed them how to draw one. And again, the YouTube video that I watched that kind of explains how to teach the tin whistle section, she shows how she teaches to draw. And so that's what I did too. So that's all linked so that you can check that out. Yeah. So we looked at the notes. We talked about, you know, how many beats that they were, that kind of thing. Something that I made that I did not, well, I'll show you this in a second. Something I made that I didn't get to this week, but I really liked, and I'll share that. But I did also print off this. This is from that same workbook that I've used every week that I've turned into a bunch of visual aids. So this one kind of has it all summarized. So we started off looking at each one individually. And then I had this one kind of set as a visual aid that has like all of the information at once. So after we talked about it, before I actually had them draw anything, but after we'd kind of talked about it and I'd shown it up on the board, we sat down together on the rug, and I made these little, they're like flashcards almost size, but there's whole notes, there's half notes, quarter notes, and eighth notes. And I made enough for every kid to have one of each, so 4 cards each. And then I have these bigger ones that I made that have the actual name on there. I put magnets on the back. And so we sat on the floor, and I laid out my 4 big ones, and I gave them each their 4 small ones. And I would say, show me a whole note. And they would each hold up their whole note. And then I would hold up mine to confirm. I would say, you know, show me a half note. And then I would say, show me a note that gets 1 beat. Show me a note that gets half a beat. So we did both the beats and the names of the notes. And they really enjoyed that. I wasn't sure if I was going to use these. Again, last night I just got on a kick of making all the things. And I kept coming up with more ideas. I'm like, I know this is more than I need. I don't need all of these things, but I just couldn't help myself. I just made them anyway. And wasn't exactly sure what I would use in class. So anyway, they really loved these. You could also use them to play, like I saw somebody mention musical note, go fish, but I knew 1, it's a little much for my age, and 2, just not enough time. So we just used them as kind of like a little matching thing, and they did great with that. Then I stuck these up on the board also. So we just had musical notes everywhere because I just had so many musical notes. After we sat on the floor and practiced that, then they sat back at the table and had a white piece of paper, and I went over the same thing again I'd already done on the board, showed them how to draw the staff, they drew it. Showed them again how to draw the treble clef, they drew it. And then we drew the notes on their staff. So we did that. And then finally, we got out our tin whistles. Actually, this might have been before. I don't remember the exact order, and it doesn't matter. But we had already used our tin whistles and just practiced playing a whole note, a quarter note, half note, all that, to practice, you know, as I clapped and they would blow for however many beats. So we'd already done that. I'd also done the whole like clapping, and again, watch the YouTube video because everything she teaches to do, I'd done. I just don't exactly remember the order right now. So anyway, but then at the very end, we sat down with Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. We'd already looked at it several times and looked at the staff, looked at the treble clef, looked like what notes do you notice, what, like how many beats do they have, that kind of thing. They had asked about what this was, so we talked about what that was. So anyway, at the very end, for the last couple of minutes, we sat down and we actually played the first, not even the first line, but the first 2 measures of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So we practiced, you know, moving our fingers off when we needed to change those, and some were held for 1 beat and some for 2 beats, and they did so good. I was really impressed. So that's what we did for fine arts. One other thing that I made that I'll just use next week kind of as a review, but could also be used this week, and it'll go with next week because next week is rhythm, but I also made this, and I made a worksheet. So I actually started off just making the worksheet, but then I was like, well, I need something to show them. So I made this to show, you know, 1 whole note is 2 half notes, is 4 quarter notes, is 8 eighth notes. But I made this worksheet so that they can draw those in. So we'll work on that next week. Again, I don't have all this put up on my blog at the time that I'm filming this video, but I will work on that and get it ASAP so that you can have that as well. To use in your classes. So that was fine arts. And then for review, so last thing's review, we played Bug SWAT, which is a little game that I made. The link is, I've got the blog post where you can download all this stuff, but it's all these little bugs. You print them out, you laminate them, and then I write on the back, like L week 7, or LW7 stands for Latin week 7, and GW9 is geography week 9. So it's like a little code on the back. Those are written in just wet erase markers. I spread them out all over the table. You could also just put them up on a whiteboard, but I didn't want to individually take 42 different bugs up on the whiteboard or have to have a mom try to do that while we were also working on fine arts, and that would be distracting. So I just laid them out on a table, and I had fly swatters, and so the kids came up one by one and they got to pick a fly swatter, and then they slapped a bug, and whatever bug they slapped, we flipped it over, and that was the memory work that we reviewed. And then we went to the next kid, and we went through that several times. We didn't get through all 42 bugs, but we got through a good chunk of them. So it was fun. It wasn't quite as fast paced as I would like, and the kids who weren't picking the bug and slapping were getting a little squirrely. So if I do this again in the spring, which is my plan, is to reuse my 12 games from this semester, next semester, I need to figure out how to make it like a competition. I may put in some bugs that are like takeaway points or something, and like each bug is a point, and then if they slap a bug that's like back to 0, they lose their point, something like that, or some sort of activity, maybe a coloring sheet for the other kids while the kids are slapping, something like that. So it went fine. It was good. The kids enjoyed it. It just, the kids who were not currently up there picking a bug to slap it was a little harder for them to sit still. So that's that. So I'll readjust that a little bit, just a warning if you want to use that, but it was still really a fun, cute activity. I also have a set of bugs on that same post with the download that are like little cutesy bugs. So if you prefer cutesy over realistic, my kids loved finding the bug they thought was the grossest and slapping it. So anyway, they had a good time. So yeah, that is what we did for week 9. I hope that was helpful. Have a great week. Bye.